Welcome back. You're watching Newslink, and we're joined by South Africa's ambassador to South Sudan, Mahlodi Sam Muofhe. Mr. Muofhe, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's speak about that appointment that the president has made, and no doubt it's a very critical one, particularly in South Africa's circumstances at the moment with state capture and all sorts of other corruption allegations that have come about over the last few years. What are your initial thoughts on Mr. Fazel and also the work that lies ahead of him?
Good morning. It is indeed a critical position which our president has just filled up. The inspector of the intelligence services plays a critical role in ensuring that he or she keeps the intelligence services intact and in check. And the appointment of the Inspector General is so crucial, and the person appointed, Imtiaz, is, in my view, the best person. He is a seasoned public official. He has been a DDG for a long time, and he has also acted as a DG, so he understands how the public service works. And he has also worked at the services in the past. So he is the best person to be able to make sure that our intelligence services don't veer off the mark and do what they're not supposed to do, as evidenced by what we heard from the Zondo Commission. I think that Imtiaz will be able to execute the task with distinction.
Yeah, and I mean, the Zondo Commission did reveal, Muofhe, that the intelligence apparatus in the country was heavily infiltrated and abused by those who were trying to capture the state. So what, in this instance, would you say his immediate priorities should be?
I think his immediate priority, without even thinking for him, is to have a real look of what the APPs of our intelligence services state, and to have a look at the staff complement available in our intelligence services, and also to go back and say that our president directed that, for example, the State Security Agency has got to be de-established, and instead of having a triad of DGs, must just have two, the domestic branch and the foreign branch, and make sure that that process is seen to its logical conclusion, because that's one avenue which must be attended to. But I'm happy that our president has also, in his last address to the nation, stated the fact that the process is underway of de-establishing the SSA to ensure that it is fit for purpose. But at the same time, we've got to appreciate that sub-CI, for the longest period, has never really had any stable leadership. And in this current situation we find ourselves, it's important that the intelligence services function optimally, and they are staffed by capable people who can make it a point that the integrity of our country is kept intact.
Ambassador Muofhe, one of the things no doubt he'll also have to deal with is the looming grey listing over South Africa. And it would appear over the last 2 months or so, the country, or the government rather, has taken significant steps to make sure that February does not leave us in a grey listed state by the FATF. And your thoughts on how he should focus on issues around money laundering and terrorism financing, which we've seen in the last few weeks have become a very real reality in the South African context.
Yes, that is a worrisome position. I'm aware of that looming grey listing, but we'll appreciate that our Minister of Finance is taking just about every step to ensure that we don't get to that stage. And I think there are a number of interventions which are being made. But top on the list, of course, is that we have to get our public system working professionally. That includes our security cluster, because we need everybody, all hands on deck. You know how the system works, Rofio. If you take the security cluster, for example, you need a number of components working together so that these components, and I'll talk about your SIU, the Ops, the police, SSA, sub-CI, everybody else working, but also including South Africans themselves. We've got to guard against the people who are going to be pilfering all the time from the past. We know these things do happen, and it's up to accounting officers to make sure that those found with their hands in the till face the full might of the law, so that we don't find ourselves getting into that stage of being grey-listed.
Ambassador, the situation where the United States issued a notice in terms of a potential attack in Sandton last week, a terrorism attack, without notifying government, how would Mr. Fazel deal with issues of that nature going forward, in that there is greater communication between the different embassies when it comes to issues that threaten the national security or safety of citizens within a particular nation? How does he navigate that particular space with what we saw happen last week with the United Nations announcement?
Our president aptly put it when he said that was unfortunate, really, that the U.S. issued that alert, considering the fact that besides the Inspector General now being appointed, throughout the whole world, intelligence services have what we call liaison communications channel. Those things are instituted to make sure that panic alerts like the ones issued by the U.S. are not done. It is unfortunate, but the great thing is that the president has been constituting and reconstituting our security cluster. We now know that we have his, the NPA, we now have the head of the ID, and the ID is going to be permanent. SIU has been at the forefront, and the Hawks and the police, they are arresting so many other people as well. So I am optimistic, and I know colleagues in the system, because I was in the system. Those who are now at the helm are really up to the task. We're seeing so many people getting arrested now. There was no need for such an alert to be made, because our intelligence services, our security cluster, is always on the alert of anything and everything 24/7.
And just a final thought to you, Ambassador. It's a known fact that all our intelligence apparatus across the country have been operating in silos. There's no sense of union or communication between the Hawks, the SIU, and other law enforcement agencies within the country. I think it's going to be very important that Mr. Fazel creates some kind of connection between all the different bodies, so that there's a streamlining of charges, arrests, prosecutions, and ultimately accountability for any kind of nefarious action that is taking place in the country. From your experience or engagement in the different state legal apparatus in the country, do you think that'll be an easy task for him to do?
Yes, Rafia. On the contrary, the security cluster, that's why it is called a security cluster, operate as a unit. In the past, there were lapses, but in terms of having the framework, they've always worked as a unit. Sometimes some people would veer off, the framework, but in principle, they work and they have to work together. That is why I said that we have to look at the cluster as a whole, because the one cluster, the one department or agency cannot stand without the other. They all need each other to be able to come up with a cohesive strategy. And we're beginning to see that happening now. I mean, the cooperation of the SIU, the Hawks, the police, and sub-CI is beginning to bear fruit, and ID. South Africans, honestly, must be able to see boxes which are being ticked. They may not be ticked at a faster pace than we want, but reality is that we're beginning to take shape now.